guys, it's Theresa here of Larkin Design, and today what I wanted to share with you is my tutorial in Photoshop in creating a project life layout using Photoshop Creative Cloud and creating this layout digitally. And so today I'm going to bring everything together. I've done 4 tutorials for you recently, and you can look those up in my playlists. I have a playlist that has all the tutorials where I have shown all the individual things that I do to create digital layouts. And those are, for example, how I edit my photos and organize my photos every week, how I work with templates, how I use 12 by 12 templates to create 12 by 24 templates. And so all of those tutorials can be viewed in my archives. And what I want to do today is bring it all together for you so that you can see from start to finish how I create a 12 by 24 digital project life layout that I'm then going to print out at home using my wide format Canon Pixma, and then I'm going to embellish it on top, and I will share with you my process tomorrow on how I embellish the layout once it's printed out. So let me go ahead and get started. I will tell you that the overall process probably took me about 1 hour and 20 minutes. I did have a change of direction, and so you'll see that right in the middle. If I hadn't taken that change in direction, I could have finished it pretty quickly in about 20 minutes. And one thing always leads to the other. This video is about 30 minutes long, 35 minutes long. I figured that I would speed the video up for you because 1 hour and 20 minutes is probably not the best use of time, considering you pretty much know what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. I just want to go through really quickly how these layouts come together before I print them out, because it's something that's been lacking in my process and in my videos that I've been sharing with you. So let me go ahead and get started, and I hope that you find it to be informative and kind of cool to see how it comes together. Okay, so the first part of my process is going to be to locate the photos that I have for that week, and I've already sorted my photos when I download them from my phone or from my DSLR. I've already organized them according to the week that they belong to. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull up the photos that I have from that week and begin the process of editing these photos for the layout. Now, in the past, I've always used a color story on my phone photos to edit and just brighten a little bit. Knowing that I have this part in my process now, this is part of my workflow, I'm just saving my editing now to this part of the process. I don't know if any of that makes sense. Anyway, I used to use a color story for my phone photos, and now I'm just doing it here before I start to work with my templates. I think everybody has a different way of doing their workflow, and so if a color story or using a phone app helps you get it done, then that's how you should do it. I think that most photos need just a tiny bit of editing, and you have to know your printer. The Canon Pixma that I have, it does print just a little tiny bit darker, so I like to brighten up a little bit, and they just look better when you just take a few minutes just to, if the perspective needs to be adjusted a little bit, or they're just a little bit dark. And so basically all I'm doing here with all of these photos is I'm brightening using the curves tool. I'm also brightening some spots on the photo using the dodge tool, and then I'm resizing each image to 300 ppi and 1800 by 1350 pixels. And that's just basically to make them a little bit smaller before I bring them into the template, and a little bit easier to manipulate, so that you don't have to drag. If you bring in a 45-inch photo that hasn't been resized, if you bring that into your template, into your 12 by 12 template, right, you're going to be dragging that photo for a while. So if you resize it real quick before you bring it into your template, then that saves you from having to do some of that resizing. And so once I have all the photos edited, I think I have, at this point, I have 6 or 7 photos. And so now I'm going to select the template that I want to use for this week. And at this point in time, I'm thinking that I really only have enough photos for one page, and sometimes that happens, right? This was not a very photo heavy week. It must have been a week where we didn't have Nick and Natalie for very long, and so there just weren't a lot of photos. And at this stage in the game, I'm going to bring in all the photos into one layout and just see what that looks like. You already know I end up changing and creating a double page spread anyway, but this is a good start to see what I have to work with and to see what I like. And certainly if one page is enough to tell the story that you want to tell and use the products that you want to use, then you should just do one page. I know there are a lot of people who only do one page layouts every week. And I think that's great. I think that that's a great way to end up with one album. I'm doing 2-page spreads, and last year I ended up with 2 very full albums, which I think is great. This year again, I'm probably going to end up with 2 full albums. Probably next year I'll change up my strategy again so that I don't have 2 albums every year, because that's a lot of albums. If you think about over 20 years, if let's say I do Project Life for 20 years, that's 40 albums. So definitely doing 1 page per week is a great strategy to tell the stories that you want to tell about your life and not have too many albums at the end. So you can see here that I'm just placing my photos here into the template. I guess a few notes about design. I put the sunset photo in that lower corner in that large frame, and even as I was putting it in there, it's not the best frame. It's not the best aspect ratio for that photo. It's a 6x8 frame, and it really needs to be more square. I'm just not going to deal with that just yet. What I want to do right now is to just place all the photos and then figure out what I want to do from there. So that is all the photos placed into one layout, and you can tell that it is a bit busy. There's not a lot of space for journaling. There's not a lot of space for the embellishments and the other things that I want to do. So I am at this point gonna close it out and go think on it for a while and re-strategize, and then I'll come back to it and figure out what I'm gonna do next. Okay, so now that I have all my photos into one template, I can sort of tell that it's a bit crowded and there's not enough space for some of the journaling cards and for a week or date card and the things that I want to add to tell the story about this week. So I've officially decided that I am going to convert from a 1-page to a 2-page spread. And what I have in mind so far is that I want to I want to take that photo of the sunset and enlarge that and put that on its own page on the opposite side. So first I'm going to just clean up these margins a little bit, and what I've decided that I'm going to do on this layout is I'm going to leave the white border around all of the photos and the journaling cards, and then create a little bit of space for the background to use a patterned paper. And so my process for that is just to set down the guidelines that I need to tell me where the margins are, and then I select all of the layers that are associated with this side of the layout and size those down. I hold down the shift key and press the corner arrows so that all the aspect ratios are maintained, and then I just neaten up those margins a little bit. So my idea for spreading this over to the second side is to use this sunset photo as an enlarged photo for a focal point. And at this stage in the game, I'm thinking that I'll probably make it 8 by 12 or 9 by 12. And I could have very easily have made it 12 by 12 too. It would have been a really pretty picture to do 12 by 12. But for now, I'm going to do 9 by 12 or 8 by 12. I can't remember which. And then I will set about to fill that space that's left by taking this larger photo over to the right hand side. And so here's where I like to use the tic-tac-toe method, where I do every other frame is the same type. So and this just makes it easy for design decisions, right? It's something that you don't have to think much about. So I'm going to repeat these 4 by 6 photos in the lower corner, the center, and then the upper corner. And the smaller frames with the 3 by 4s and the 2 by 3s, I'm going to repeat in the opposing spots. And so I'm just going through the process of moving these around right now, and of course I always find that some of the margins aren't quite in the place that they need to be, so it's just a matter of resizing those a little bit and checking to make sure that they're all lined up. This is one of those things where, and I've said this before, you could spend hours trying to line all these things up, and sometimes I feel like I could spend hours trying to line all these things up, and eventually I just say, okay, if it looks good enough to my eye, then let's go with it. So mine may not be all completely perfect, but it's okay. Let it be good enough, right? Alright, and so once I have that sort of straightened out, and then I've moved the sunset photo and its clipping mask over, I've moved it up to the top so that I know that it is part of the right hand side of the layout, and that way if I need to select all the items on the left hand side, then I can do that pretty easily. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the spaces that are on the left hand side. And so basically what I'm trying to do right now is to position all the photos in the layout and make sure that there's balance in where the photos are positioned. This card up here in the upper left hand corner will be the date card. I know that's something that Kelly Perky does. She always does one particular photo in one particular spot, and that's always her jumping off point. I do like to put my week cards or my date cards in the upper left hand corner. I don't do it every week, but it is something that I like to do just for consistency and just because it's a design decision that's made, boom, don't have to think about it. I like those kinds of design decisions because then it streamlines your process and it also provides continuity throughout the album. So I think that I have everything in place, or all the photos are in place at this point, and I'm going to go in and select my product that I want to use for this layout. I am using the Memory Pockets monthly kit for March. It's called Roar. It's available at thelilypad.com. Also, the template that I used is the clean lined templates from Sahlin Studio that was released back in February. And so I just go in and I pick out my favorite cards, and then I start placing them around the layout. One of the things that I realized at this point was that I'm probably going to not use any of the 2x3 frames, and I'm just going to make them all 3x4. 2x3 frames, for me, they work great if you need to include supporting photos, but I don't have supporting photos this week. I just have main photos. Everything that I took is sort of a main photo. There are obviously photos that have more emphasis than others, right? The photo of Alan is an emphasis photo. The photo of the kids washing the dishes is an emphasis photo. The sunset photo is an emphasis photo. And so in this case, the 3x4 images become supporting photos. The one in the upper center of this side of the layout is granola. My husband and I made granola for the first time. It was actually really good. So I took a fun little picture of that. It's actually an interesting study in light and shadow. And then a couple of others with our pets that are just smaller supporting photos, and they fit just fine in the 3x4 spaces, right? So now I begin the process of bringing in the journaling cards. And so like I said, I just selected some of my favorites. You could certainly spend hours obsessing over whether the colors balance or whether they match or whether there's too much of this or too much of that. And quite honestly, I just pick the ones that I like and I put them in the layout and I place them and I move on with it, because there's a thing in interior design where we always say, that's my background. Interior design is what I studied in college way back when, and then I worked in the interior design field for 8 years after college before I became a stay-at-home mom. And there's something that we say in interior design, and it's that if you buy pieces that you love, then you will always find a place for them and you will always love them, because they're simply items that you bought. And I like that philosophy in scrapbooking as well, because if you select the photos that you like, the products that you like, the journaling cards that you like, and you put them in there, then you're going to like the layout that you end up with. So you'll notice here that I'm using a 4x4 card in a 4x6 space. And this is, I'm sort of trying to figure out what I want to do, because I was worried that if I sized it all the way up to 6 inches that it would become pixelated. So what I decided to do was to draw a series of rectangles around the journaling card so that it would pop against the white background. I turned the clipping mask white so that that would show white, and then the journaling card itself is white. And now I'm going to draw a rectangle, and the rectangle will have no fill and a mint green stroke around it, so that now there's one border. And then I also added just a light outer glow. If you click on the FX button at the bottom of the layers tab, right where I am right now, it gives you an option for adding an outer glow, and an outer glow will let you just put a box around your element, whether it's a photo or a journaling card or text. And so now that card has two light mint green borders around it, just to help it pop from the white background. Now what I'm doing here, this is always fun. I am taking a 3x4 card, and I'm going to copy it and copy it and copy it until it fills up the 12x12 canvas. Now what I'm going to do with this is going to be a 12x12 pattern paper that will be the background for the left hand side of my layout. And so I'm just taking the 3x4 journaling card that has a repeatable pattern on it and copying and pasting that layer over and over again until the page is filled up. There are other ways to create a pattern paper from a repeatable pattern, and if you look that up in YouTube, you'll find a lot of other artists that have shared several different ways to repeat a pattern. And certainly if you're wanting to create pattern papers on a regular basis, then take the time to learn that, just for the purposes of doing this really quick today, and for the purposes of these series of tutorials. I didn't think that was really necessary. I think that if you're repeating a 3x4 card, then the easiest way is probably just to copy and paste your layers. It's fine for now, and there are other resources for learning how to do it other ways. So that's how I'm doing it for today. But know that there are other ways to do that if you are wanting to create pattern papers on a regular basis. And I encourage you to look those other artists up that are doing that. So now begins the process of what to do with the right hand side. And at this stage in the game, I'm still trying to make it 8x12 or 9x12. And I'm just sort of copying and pasting that white background so that there's a matching one behind the sunset photo. And resizing those frames or those clipping masks to fit that. And then once I did that, I kind of realized that maybe I could just go ahead and fill the whole right hand side. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab another 3x4 card. There's this little dashed line, little mint green dashed line pattern here. And so this one was a JPEG format, not a PNG, so it wouldn't let me change the canvas size. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to use the rectangular marquee tool and select the pattern, and then right click and select layer via copy. And now I have that pattern on a layer, and I'm going to open a new document. It takes a minute, my computer is chugging. I'm going to open a new document, and then I'm going to slide that layer into that new document. And there it is. And then I'm going to copy and paste it again, just like I did the 3x4 card, so that it fills up the whole page. And this is going to be the pattern that I use on the right hand side of the layout. Now hopefully this is helpful to you, so that you can see what are some easy ways to replicate patterns and give you some more flexibility with your digital journaling cards. This is one of the reasons I really love using digital products, because it gives you a little more flexibility in making the products work for how you want them to work. In the Roar MPM kit, there weren't any 12x12 pattern papers, but it's easy enough to select one of the patterns or two of the patterns from the journaling cards and replicate it and create your own pattern paper. So once I have the pattern replicated across the page, I flatten the image and copy and paste it into my layout. So now we have 2 pages, each one with a pattern paper that we replicated and created ourselves from 3x4 cards. And now I'm going to fill in the remaining space behind this sunset photo. So I'm just selecting this card. This card is absolutely one of my favorites. And of course, now I need to resize a few things, right? Let me pick the other cards that I want to use. I am going to use some 4x6 cards to fill in those spaces, and so I'm just copying and pasting the clipping mask rectangle that I need for those journaling cards as well. There we go. So it's important to copy and paste those from the left hand side so that the sizes match. And then my computer decided that this morning would be a great morning to run the antivirus. So forgive me, that screen will pop up a couple of times. It's also been interrupting my voiceovers. Ugh. So yeah, now that I have this one clipping mask positioned, then I can figure out the size that everything else needs to be from that on this side of the layout, right? So I'm going to make sure that this card is clipped properly and sized properly based on that rectangle that I copied from the left hand side. And then I can resize my sunset photo again. And so you see how it's just a matter of changing that up a little bit at a time until you get it right, and using those rectangles that we created our clipping mask from really helps to simplify that as well. Here is one of the 4x6 cards, and you'll notice when I go to resize it that it is not exactly the same aspect ratio. So, and that's okay, right? Just use the width that it is, and it will run off the clipping mask a little bit, and that's fine. And then I'll move the sunset photo, move that margin a little bit so that it's lined up with that card, that mint green card as well. And then there's the space for the third card on that side. And again, this is a 4x6, and I will lose a couple of the stripes at the bottom, And I totally think that's okay. I don't think anybody's going to miss that. There we go. And then I have this space underneath the main photo. And I'm going to use a 4x6 card. This one that says awesome. Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm so excited. I'm not going to use a clipping mask for this one. I'm going to just eyeball it. And then I'm going to add an outer glow to this, the same as I did in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to add a mint green outer glow to that so that it pops as well and as its own entity against the white background. And then I just have one more card to add in there. And I'm just looking at sort of what I like and what I need. And then I remembered that there was a paint chip or a paint sample card right there. Yep. And that's the one I want to use. Now this one has a white border around it, but I'm going to use my clipping mask to clip just around the green so that the white border that's on the journaling card itself doesn't show. So the green swatches will fill that whole frame. There. And I'm just straightening that up a little bit and making sure that those swatches do indeed fill that clipping mask without losing the words that are on it. There we go. Okay. And there's one last thing that I wanted to do, which is to add some text over the sunset photo. And so here's my little commentary on this sunset photo here, because I realized that I've probably had a sunset photo in like the last 4 layouts that I've done. And probably all 4 of them have been enlarged focal points. And I just wanted to say that happens to be the thing right now that's making me happy, that I'm photographing, that I'm almost obsessed with, and it's making me happy, and I love it, and I'm glad that I have these photos. And so to me, if those are the photos that are making you happy to take, then those are the photos that you should include in your project life layouts. If you have 50 photos of a coffee cup, and those coffee cups made you happy throughout the year, right? 50 photos for a whole year, then those are absolutely the photos that you should include in your project life layouts. I think that if you include the photos that you love, and you use the products that you love, and you tell the stories that you love, then you're going to have layouts that you love and albums that you love. So that is my layout for today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you will like and comment and subscribe. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for the embellishing portion of this layout. Thanks again, you guys. Bye-bye.